That's what happened. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So we start now? It's 5 o'clock?
Yeah, sure.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauda Bhada Vicharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatade Starne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text starting with text 24.
Ready. I'm correct.
Siddhayor ime loka nakuryam karma chedaham sankarasya chakarta sham upahanyam ima praja. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Purport. Varna Sankara is unwanted population which disturbs the peace of the general society. In order to check this social disturbance, there are prescribed rules and regulations by which the population can automatically become peaceful and organized for spiritual progress in life. When Lord Krishna descends, naturally he deals with such rules and regulations in order to maintain the prestige and necessity of such important performances. The Lord is the father of all living entities. And if the living entities are misguided indirectly, the responsibility goes to the Lord. Therefore, whenever there is general disregard of regulative principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects the society. We should, however, note carefully that although we have to follow in the footsteps of the Lord, we still have to remember that we cannot imitate him. Following and imitating are not on the same level. We cannot imitate the Lord by lifting Govardhan Hill, as the Lord did in his childhood. It is impossible for any human being. We have to follow his instructions, but we may not imitate him at any time. The Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33, 30, 30 and 31 affirms, Naitat samachare jatu manasapi yanishwara vinasyacharan maudya yatarudro dijam disham ishwaranam vacha satyam tataiva charitam kuchit tesham yat swavacho yuktam buddhimam stat samacharet. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. We should always consider the position of the Ishwaras, or those who can actually control the movements of the sun and moon, as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate the Ishwaras, who are super powerful. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean. But if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he will be killed. There are many pseudo-devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja, marijuana, and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some pseudo-devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Ras Leela, or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhan Hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions. Nor should one try to occupy their post without qualification. There's so many incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. Text 25. Sakta karmanya vidvamso yata kurvanti bharata kuryat vidvams tata shaktas chikir shur loka sangraham. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness and a person not in Krishna consciousness are differentiated by different desires. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to devotion, to development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activities. But one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is required to show the people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Text 26. Nabhudi Vedam Janayed Jnanam Karma Sanginam Joshayed Sarva Karmani Vidvam Yukta Samacharan. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. Purport. Vedaischa savaraham eva veja. That is the end of all Vedic rituals. All rituals or performances of sacrifices and everything that is put into the Vedas, including all direction for material activities, are meant for understanding Krishna, who is the ultimate goal of life. But because the conditioned souls do not know anything beyond sense gratification, they study the Vedas to that end. But through fruitive activities and sense gratification regulated by the Vedic rituals, one is gradually elevated to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a realized soul in Krishna consciousness should not disturb others in their activities or understanding, but he should act by showing how the results of all work can be dedicated to the service of Krishna. The learned Krishna conscious person may act in such a way that the ignorant person working for sense gratification may learn how to act and how to behave, although the ignorant man is not to be disturbed in his activities. A slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of the Lord without waiting for others, without waiting for other Vedic formulas. For this fortunate man, there is no need to follow the Vedic rituals, because by direct Krishna consciousness, one can have all the results one would otherwise derive from following one's prescribed duties. Text 27. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karamani saravasa ahankara vimhuratma kartahamiti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. Purport. Two persons, one in Krishna consciousness and the other in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there's a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Krishna. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently, and that is the symptom of his nescience. He does not know that this gross and subtle body is the creation of material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, his bodily and mental activities should be engaged in the service of Krishna, in Krishna consciousness. The ignorant man forgets that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Rishikesha, or the master of the senses of the material body. For due to his long misuse of the senses and sense gratification, he is factually bewildered by the false ego, which makes him forget his eternal relationship with Krishna. Text 28. Tattavittu mahabaho guna karma vibhagayo guna guneshu vartanta iti matva nasajjate. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, almighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification. Knowing well the differences between work and devotion and work for fruit results. Purport: the knower of the absolute truth is convinced of his awkward position in material association. He knows that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and that his position should not be in the material creation. He knows his real identity as part and parcel of the Supreme, who is eternal bliss and knowledge, and he realizes that somehow or other, he is entrapped in the material conception of life. In his pure state of existence, he is meant to dovetail his activities in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He therefore engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness and becomes naturally unattached to the activities of the material senses, which are all circumstantial and temporary. He knows that his material condition of life is under the supreme control of the Lord. Consequently, he is not disturbed by all kinds of material reactions, which he considers to be the mercy of the Lord. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one who knows the absolute truth in three different features, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Tattvavit, for he knows also his own factual position in relationship with the Supreme. Text 29. Prakriter guna samudha sajante guna karmasu tan kritsna vido mandan kritsna vinna vichalaye. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Purport: persons who are unknowledgeable falsely identify with gross material consciousness and are full of material designations. This body is a gift of the material nature, and one who is too much attached to the bodily consciousness is called manda, or a lazy person without understanding of spirit soul. Ignorant men think of the body as a self. They accept bodily connections with others as kinsmanship. The land in which the body is obtained is their object of worship, and they consider the formalities of religious rituals to be ends in themselves. Social work, nationalism, and altruism are some of the activities for such materially designated persons. Under the spell of such designations, they are always busy in the material field. For them, spiritual realization is a myth, and so they are not interested. Those who are enlightened in spiritual life, however, should not try to agitate such materially engrossed persons. Better to prosecute one's own spiritual activities silently. Such bewildered persons may be engaged in such primary moral principles of life as nonviolence and similar materially benevolent work. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risk, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. Text 30. Mayi sarvani karmani sanyasya jatma chetasa nirasir nirmamo bhutva yujaswa vigatadvara. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Purport: this verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties, as if in military discipline. Such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna. because that is the constitutional position of the living entity. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord were his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord, and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Chetas Nirashi. Nirashi means that one has to act on the order of the master, but should not expect fruitive results. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. That is the real purport of Mai, or unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly he does not claim proprietorship over anything. This consciousness is called nirmama, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmanship, without so-called kinsmen in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way, one may become vigata jwara, or without feverish mentality or lethargy. Everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness as described above. That will lead one to the path of liberation. Text 31. Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manava shadavanto nashuyanto muchante tepi karmabi. Those persons who execute their duties according to my instructions or my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Purport. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom, and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita, but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. One more real quick. Ye tweetad abhyasu yanto nanu tistanti me matam sarvagana vimudam stan vidi nastan achetasa. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. The flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein, as there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for the disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the Personality of Godhead, due to a vacant heart. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Haribo. Everyone still there?
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice.
Haribo.
We
I
can
just
now
want to
take
make a
questions.
quick comment before we start on the questions. I laugh every time I read text 24. I'll tell you why very briefly. Because when I started reading Bhagavad Gita in the beginning, in 1972, I think, I was still engaged in the activities Srila Prabhupada describes here, smoking ganja or marijuana. And because no one told me not to. And I was just reading Bhagavad Gita and doing my thing, enjoying my life. And I came to this verse, and my God, there are pseudo devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja, marijuana. And first I said, how did he know about marijuana? I was shocked. And similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting, and this is the part that got me, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they're calling death near. That scared me. I stopped that day. Boom, finished. Just by reading exactly that one sentence. It's so powerful. So I just wanted to share that. It's a personal experience with this transcendental literature saving my life. So any questions? Donna, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yes, whoever. Yeah, please. Sita?
Yeah. Just wanted to if you can just elaborate a little bit on the last verse that we just read.
The last verse.
I second that too.
The last verse you just
I also want to hear.
Yeah, last verse it says, but those who out of envy, that's the first point, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them, regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors. Yeah, get off my phone here. Sorry, my big brother from Detroit. So in the purport, let's real quick, because the short purport, the flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So a disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the personality of Godhead due to a vacant heart. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him. Now, one part of that, I'm not sure if this is why you brought that up, Sita, but one part of that last part of the purport is saying that a disobedient person, however great he may be. So sometimes we project that on the rest of the world, materialistic people, karmis, so on and so forth. But it can also refer to us as well. You know, no matter how big our position is within Krishna consciousness, we know it can go all the way up to the platform of Guru. If we're not careful and we're disobedient to Srila Prabhupada, especially knowing what he's prescribed for us, he's given us almost like A to Z. He would always say Z, not Z, but A to Z, everything we need to do. And if we pay attention, really pay attention, listen. Arjuna, have you heard me? Yes, I've heard you. We have to pay attention, listen. When things are being read, especially when we're reading from Prabhupada's own writings, we should be like rapt attention, like the sages of Naimisharanya. One time, Rida Anandaraj was describing that picture in the inside cover of the Bhagavatam, where all the sages are sitting, and Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. He said, that is the example of attentive listening. Look at how they're focused, and they're catching all these incredible points. So Srila Prabhupada has described everything we need to do. And if we don't do it, and if we are negligent, or as Prabhupada said in one purport, resentful. Some devotees actually became resentful to Srila Prabhupada's instructions. Too rigid. Srila Prabhupada, why was he so rigid? Because he's trying to save our lives. So we should not be resentful, negligent. We should not be inattentive in the presence of this information. So again, I'm not sure if that is exactly why you wanted to point that out, but that's what stands out to me, that we don't want to end up like what's being described here, because it can also relate to us. Yes, Sita.
So it's like if when you're not doing that, then this happens, and that's what I was more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And We have many good examples, Mahajano Yena Gata Sapantaha, following the footsteps. But we have many bad examples. So for an intelligent person, a bad example is just as valuable as a good example, knowing what not to do and what to do. So we study carefully. See, following in the footsteps, as Srila Prabhupada said here, don't imitate. We've had instances where devotees tried to imitate Srila Prabhupada, and it's disastrous. You can't imitate Srila Prabhupada. You can follow him. Saswat Maharaj explained that Srila Prabhupada conducted himself in such a way that we can actually follow him. The way he led his life, the way he preached, especially how he preached. He didn't come to America on a flying carpet, okay, first and foremost. He didn't pop out of a bottle like a genie. Some of the yogis, they try to dress so fancy and long flowing hair and so many different things to attract people. Prabhupada just came as he was, simple, and preached Krishna consciousness purely. And he said, I have no magic. Why these boys and girls are following me? I have no magic. I have no money. I'm an old man. I have nothing. Why they're mad after me? Because he gave Krishna. And we were mad for some change in life. We didn't know about Krishna. We just wanted to change in our lives. Our lives were a mess. And we heard something wonderful, something with hope. So we were willing to do as Prabhupada said. These rules might be difficult. And they are, and they were, especially in the beginning, extremely difficult. But Prabhupada, the sound of his voice and the hope that he gave us and the vision he created, it made us think, yes, we can do this. Even though it was difficult, we can do this. And that hope picked us up and carried us from place to place in danger. Like it said in one place here that devotees take all kinds of risk. Even though Krishna says, don't disturb the minds of the faithless person. The Prabhupada says, but the devotees know the inner mood of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya is Paraduka Duki, the most merciful person. So devotees know that. So they take risk. Prabhupada's talking about himself, if you stop and think about it. He's talking about himself. I saw in an article one time, this devotee so-called wrote it, something about Srila Prabhupada, risk or reckless. I was so angry when I saw that. To even think for a second that Prabhupada was reckless. No, he was a great man, and great men take risk for higher purposes and higher causes. So Srila Prabhupada took unlimited risk, more than we can ever imagine. So I really feel he's talking about himself in that purport. Devotees are more kind than the Lord. They take all kinds of risks. Think of the risk he took. 69 years old. I'm 69 years old, and I don't even want to leave the house right now due to COVID, okay? Get off my case. Prabhupada, 2 heart attacks, 69 years old. Anyway, don't get me started on it, but we should follow his example, avoid making as many mistakes as we can. But at the same time, if we do make mistakes, pick ourselves up, because Prabhupada is waiting to hold us. He's not holding mistakes against us, but he cannot be patient with foolish people. If we want to serve and we're willing to take on the austerity and pick ourselves up, Srila Prabhupada is always there to guide us. So I'm sorry I didn't mean to take up so much time.
Thank
Jonah?
Okay.
Hey, Haryasha. Smiley, smiley.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Balavaj Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Obeisances.
Prabhupada. Haribol.
You spoke in one of those purports, you're talking about the soul of the soul,
Woo.
the self of the self. And I was thinking that with Arjuna and ourselves, this courage that comes to do the right thing comes from when we acknowledge really that our real origin is right there, is the Supreme Lord. So if he's really like the self of the self, then we have to kind of work for his benefit, because it appears that what he wants us to do is what's going to really make us happy. It's kind of hard to hold that realization that Krishna, that super soul, is really the self of the self. And so maybe you can elaborate.
Well, you said it perfectly. Of course, our time just ran out, but just think of Krishna as Surit Dam Sarva Bhutanam. He's the best well-wishing friend. And Prabhupada says, Surit is a word that indicates the very best person who doesn't expect something back from others. That's the kind of friend Krishna is. And to have that kind of friend, to be able to reciprocate with that kind of a friend, what a blessing. And how foolish if we don't. Krishna's saying, you ride in my car. You don't have to buy the car. You just drive my car for me and you can ride in the same car. You make the offering to Krishna and you get to enjoy the same prasadam. How wonderful. So thank you, Hariyashra, for pointing that out. Very beautiful. Okay, Drona.
Thank you, Balabhaja Prabhu, and thank you to all the devotees for joining in today for the Bhagavad Gita as it is. We will resume on Wednesday. Mother Renika, you had your hand patiently up. I hope your question maybe got answered. If not, we'll get to you on Wednesday. Also, I want to mention that Balabhaja Prabhu will be giving class this coming Thursday morning at 7:50. So please tune in for that. It is that particular day is the appearance day of Advaitacharya.
Haribo.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Humble
Hare
obeisance.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Prabhu,
Prabhu.
send me that number, Prabhu.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Very nice class. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Krishna, Krishna.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.